Do you feel consistently dissatisfied in your life? Have you ever felt the urge to just reboot your life? Do you desire to start over, break free, but doubt that that's the right path for you? Well, today on the Creatrix Energy Show, I want to share with you the 10 pillars of reinvention so you can have the strength to revision your life. Welcome to the show and welcome back. If you're tuning in again, I'm so glad you are here. My name is Kat Moulton, your guide to unlearn the programming, unlock your heart, and unleash your brilliance. Here is where we begin to shift paradigms so you feel fully alive, more confident, and become more visible. My guests and I are here to support you on your journey. And today, like I said, I want to talk about reinventing your life or revisioning your whole life, depending on where you're at. Some people use the word reboot. So whatever resonates with you, that's okay. Just know that if you are, like I asked the question in the beginning, dissatisfied and you want something different, this episode may be for you. And I'm really passionate about that because I've had to do that in my own life. And I have a lot of women over the course of the last few years say to me, let me know how that works out for you when I share bits of my story, because underneath it all, they're not really that happy or satisfied either. They're just going through the motions, feeling like another cog on the wheel, and don't like feeling that way, but don't really know how to flip it or switch it for themselves. And we live in a culture that doesn't really support that for many of us. So that's a little bit about what we are going to talk about today. And let me share with you a little bit first about why I am passionate about that. I mentioned that I spent a long time in my marriage and during motherhood feeling completely empty, really unsatisfied at everything that was going on. And I didn't feel that I had the support in my life to make the change. I didn't have good boundaries in my life to make that change. And I really didn't have the confidence. And eventually I got to a place where I was done. I don't know if you've ever felt like enough, fed up. There's got to be something else. That's how I was feeling. And then one day I just finally decided that it was time to live a more satisfying life, because one of the things that I reflected on was like, what example am I setting for my children when I don't show up satisfied and happy? Is this what I want for them? Is this how I want them to show up in the world for themselves? And that really got my wheels spinning. It was bigger than just me feeling dissatisfied or unhappy for whatever reason that brought me to that place. And I have 3 children. When my youngest, who's now 16, was about, I think 13, it's going through a really hard time. And we had been at a place for him. He was getting some support, and I went to the ocean. And in a cold November day, I don't know if you've been in the North Atlantic in November, but it's a bit chilly. And I dove in because I needed a pattern interrupt. I was with a girlfriend. And when I came out, I was really clear that I needed to honor my desire to leave my marriage and to move forward because of me, not because of my husband, but what was going on with me. And it was, not a new theme for us. It had been coming up for a decade. And I just got to the point where that was what I needed to do. I had no idea how it was going to shake out, though. I just knew the desire, and I was going to allow myself the space to explore that. And eventually I left. It took a little bit longer than I thought, partly because the pandemic came along. I won't get into all the details, but after I had left and during the pandemic, I found Clubhouse, and I was working with 2 other women in a room, and we did this room called the 3 key obstacles that women especially struggle with when reinventing their life or wanting to reinvent. And, during the pandemic, so many people were reinventing their lives for so many different reasons. And that didn't necessarily mean up and leave your marriage and get divorced. It means different things for different people. Sometimes you just want to find a new job or hang out with different people, or, move. The location or the home that you're in isn't really working for you. So there's so many ways we reinvent, but people were forced to do that when the pandemic hit and people lost jobs. It's not just this inner desire, I want to change things because I want to change things. Sometimes life happens and we do need to reinvent or pivot and shift gears, no matter what language we want to use around it. So anyways, during this Clubhouse room, we had been talking to people and we discovered that the three key things were what I already mentioned in my own life. Most women didn't take the plunge to reinvent or revision because they didn't have good boundaries. They didn't have the confidence, and they didn't have the support or the community or people in their lives to lean into. It was true for me, and it was true for so many women that we talked about or talked to, excuse me. And, from those conversations, we developed 10 pillars, if you will, to lean into and support yourself and your idea of when you want to make these big changes and you don't know how. So 10 things that you can dive into. That's how this process came about. So the first pillar that I want to talk to you about when you make that change so that you can have that confidence, set those boundaries, and feel supported is awareness. You're getting to a point in your life where you're aware that you're dissatisfied, you're not happy, you want things to be different, but you don't know what to do. So really the first one is awareness, but honoring that awareness, not just stuffing it under the rug, oh, it doesn't matter, but you've gotten to this point where you're aware, you're like, I am ready to do something about this. So that's the first place to start. And there are so many ways you can get to that awareness. We've talked about this in other episodes, but you can meditate, you can journal. There's so many ways. But when you just stop and notice and it taps into your awareness, whether it's in your mind or your body, honor it. Honor your desire for things to be different. The second thing is letting go. And I talk about this a lot in, again, other episodes and other work. Creating space to call in what you want. First, you really need to let go of thoughts or people or things that don't serve you. You may need to gently release, let go. You may need to surrender what you don't know, what your pain is. There's so many ways, but the second pillar is really creating space to let go of what's no longer serving you and what's holding you back. So you can create beautiful space to do the third step, which is begin to reimagine, clarity, vision, like really getting to touch with yourself and knowing your desires, your intentions, your goals, knowing what matters to you and beginning to nourish it. So that is the third one, creating maybe rituals or sacred space. Tonight, I'm doing a workshop with a friend. We're hosting a few other women, and we are going to take time to rest, relax, and restore with singing bowls and Reiki and journaling and group communication for women to have the space to just rest in their life so that you can have the energy to reimagine, and not just reimagine things being so completely different. Maybe you just need to make some little tweaks, but it's really about getting clear on what your desires are and maybe even what your needs are. Maybe the need is to set a better boundary. We're going to talk about boundaries in a second, but if that resonates with you, I invite you to check out a previous episode with my friend and colleague who I did the 3 obstacles with. She did an episode about boundaries on the Creatrix Energy Show, Krista Resnick. It's beautiful. I encourage you to check it out. So the fourth one is huge. It's about honoring your feminine energy. This is really about getting out of your head and into your heart. I talk about this all the time, and into your body. This is getting even clearer on knowing yourself. It helps with that clarity. So many of us in this culture, we're in our head all the time. I so guilty of that. It is my go-to. When I get stressed, I go right back into my head. But it's about getting into your body, honoring your feminine energy so that you can build that clarity to know how you want your life to be, how not just be, but how you want it to feel. Do you want to feel good in your life? The episode I did with Bridget Kosser, she was an energy coach of mine, and she's like, what are your 3 words? We worked really hard on getting to know how I wanted to feel in my body. I wanted to feel clear, strong, and fluid. And tapping into that feminine energy is really about the fluidity and being able to shift gears or change and not have things be so rigid. Tapping into that second chakra energy, that creative energy that gives us that fluid and that spice of life. I can't wait till next week episode. My guest, Catherine, a different Catherine than who hosts with me sometimes is going to talk all about the chakra system. And the week after, I have a very special guest who's going to dive into all about feminine energy. But really, that is one of the next pillars, is honoring your feminine energy. And if you are not familiar with it, I invite you to just set the intention to start getting into it and learning the skills. If we have time, maybe we'll touch on a little bit more, but that is one of the pillars. And inside that feminine energy, it's a place to pause and break, give yourself a break and grieve and get in touch with your emotions in a way that when we are in our mind, and sometimes we need to be to get certain things done and have structure, this pause and going into the feminine energy. And the grief part is so important, because a lot of us feel stuck because we aren't allowing our feelings to come up. Our energy is kind of stuck down in the body, if you will, and we're not taught in this culture to really honor it or grieve it and move through it. And when the energy comes up, when it wants to be released, one of the pillars, allow it that space to come up and out. So it's about honoring yourself in all aspects of yourself when you tap into your feminine energy. That also includes playing and having fun. And again, second chakra, really get in touch with your sensual side and that fluid side, and asking yourself the questions. What do I need to do for me to honor my feminine energy? So the next pillar is action. And this is kind of in the contrast of the feminine energy, because we need both masculine and feminine, or we have them both. We need to balance them in a way that works for us. So when I think of action, I think of the masculine energy, but we really want to take that inspired action, take risks that feel good to us. Maybe we want to take action on decluttering our house and creating space in our physical environment. We want to make changes, but if we just think about it and just revision in our mind and don't take the action, we don't tweak down and know how to figure out if this is working for us, if this is the direction we want to go. So when we take inspired action, instead of just thinking about it and being in thought form, we can go back to the drawing board. When we take action, we can feel, ooh, what did this feel like in my body? Does this resonate with me? So I'm going to give you an example. After my husband and I split up and separated, I moved out of my house and I began to date. And I dated some different men. And, I will say, sometimes I feel like I fell in love again, but it wasn't about that. It was about every interaction I had, I learned something about myself. And I took time to reflect and know about me. But if I hadn't taken the action to actually engage with someone, I wouldn't have gotten the clarity on what I wanted to feel like in a relationship and what worked and what didn't. And, you could take action on anything, but that reflective part of the taking action is really, really important to get to know who you are and what is working for you, so that you can build some momentum and tweak, like I said, and revise. So I'm going to encourage, if you have some thoughts like that come up and that keep coming up, especially, in the energy world, when we hear things 3 times, it's definitely a sign to take action on something. If you're feeling that, so take the action that you feel inspired to do, and reflect. See what it felt like, notice, and is it satisfying? There was an episode I did with Lisa Dahl about intuitive eating. And we talked a little bit about emotional eating too. And there's so many, in the diet world, the shoulds and the should nots of what you should do. And she talks a lot about undieting your life. But in it, we talked about satisfaction, and we talked about it about food. And I had mentioned to her in the episode that people are surprised that I eat so much for breakfast. And the reason I do is I eat nutritious food that are also satiating and satisfying, because that was an area in my life that I didn't want to feel deprived or depleted. So I regularly eat probably 5 days a week, at least 3 eggs in butter, sometimes with something green, either spinach or arugula and tomatoes. But you know what? It feels so good, and it's energizing, and that area of my life that I feel satisfied and satiated in it, because I took the action that worked for me instead of listening to what someone else thought I should do, where, they're talking, you should intermittent fast, and you should only eat fruit, or you should do this or should do that. those things work for other people, but getting in touch with yourself and taking the action what works. So my breakfast works for me because it's really yummy and it's really satisfying. So I'm going to invite you in your life to take the inspired action in whatever area. Just start with one area that works for you and play with it and see how it feels. The next pillar is mindset. This is all about the I am and the shifting perspective and the paradigm shifting we talk about in this episode, but really getting to know yourself when you work in these other pillars, like who I am, what do I believe? Try to incorporate things to elevate your mindset and shift it to see what is working and what isn't. And, maybe you have a friend like I do, like Catherine, who just popped on sometimes, that will call me out on my mindset issues. And make me rethink, is this language working for me? Is this mindset pattern that I've been doing over and over, is it getting me where I need to go? Is this what's keeping me stuck in my life and why I am dissatisfied? Are my thoughts the reasons that I want to reinvent? Or, are they the reason I feel stuck? So doing some mindset evaluation and maybe even getting a coach or a therapist or a friend that you can bounce some of these things off of and learn more about where you're resonating with your mindset, and what your beliefs are. There's a really great book called The Biology of Belief by, I'm thinking it's Bruce Lipton. I could be wrong, but The Biology of Belief really talks about, what we believe and how we embody it and how it, affects our mind is so important. So that is one of the pillars I invite you to work on, is your mindset. The next pillar is heart set. We did a room on Clubhouse yesterday about this, mindset versus heart set, and which one matters more. And, a lot of people came in and talked about heart set mattering more. It's not always true. It depends on where you're at, and it's not an either or. That's why I have, of the 10 pillars, them both in there. It's a both and, mindset and heart set. When we talk about the heart set, and I've done many episodes regarding the heart, you can look back, we've talked about how the heart energy, has that field of 3 feet around us in circumference always, and the heart has so much more information that we can access instead of just our mind. And it's about trusting and intuition and inner wisdom and that unconditional love, not just for other people, but for ourselves. So really starting to cultivate our heart set, that can help us in the reinvention process, because it really helps us fine tune, again, who we are, what matters to us most, so that when we are reinventing ourselves or revisioning, we're not just doing it from a place of, well, I'm not happy and I'm just going to do this. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm going to find out and get in touch with what matters to me, trust the intuitive hits, and then start taking action toward them. So I would invite you, if you're interested in heart set, I have so many different links I could send you. Reach out and DM me. Let me know what you're looking for. Happy to show you more, but I've done a few episodes on the show about the heart, like the heart soul mastery with Catherine Ann Ash, Kristen Lemaster, and the Rooted in 3 team came and really talked about the science of it in one of our earliest episodes. So I invite you to lean into that pillar. The next pillar is support, and that goes along with those 3 obstacles that women face when they're reinventing themselves. It's the support that they're lacking. So really developing that support, like find your tribe, find your community, get a coach, get a therapist, friends that really support you for your best interests, that show up for you when you need them. I was talking with Dr. Jen the other day. I don't know if any of you know who she is. She's on Clubhouse and Facebook a lot, but I grew up with her, and she's an amazing woman. And she was talking about the strong boundary she has with her family because they weren't supportive. I also come from a family that wasn't quite supportive, but my boundaries were a little weaker. And I've noticed with them that I have to have that unconditional love and acceptance for them, but that's not always where I'm going to get the support that I need. And I didn't get that support that I needed when I wanted to leave my marriage. I remember about a decade ago, I was set to leave, and my mother looked at me and said, "You have 3 little kids. How can you leave? What are you going to do for money? Blah, 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 blah." All these things. And it really made me shrink and feel like I couldn't lead, even though I knew in my heart that is what I needed to do. Not just for me, it would have been better for my children, most likely, better for my husband, even. Things happen maybe the way they're supposed to, but if I had trusted and if I'd had the support, and I didn't have any other friends either, they would all say the same thing. Well, your husband's not that bad and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, but it wasn't a satisfying relationship. It was a relationship of convenience at one point and a lot of doubt and a lot of power struggle. And I stayed in it for 10 more years because I didn't have that support. Eventually, along the way, I did find a couple of therapists that work. I did have some coaches, but I will tell you, I even had a coach that told me not to leave. And so a good coach doesn't necessarily tell you what to do. A good coach asks you questions to help you bring up the information inside of you so you can make that empowered decision for yourself. But sometimes just being alone and not feeling supported can make it more challenging to reinvent our lives. So support, find the right support for you is one of the pillars. The 11th pillar, and I'm sorry, I haven't numbered them all as we go, but the 11th pillar is celebrate. As women, we do not do this enough. Celebrate yourself, celebrate your wins, celebrate your successes, celebrate those times where you shifted your mindset, or opened your heart and opened your heart set up, celebrate any action that you took, no matter what the outcome is. Because if you're someone who's been afraid to take action, and you've started to take it, as scary as it is, even if it didn't work out the way you wanted to or envisioned, celebrate yourself because you did it, you tried it. And from when you tried it, no matter how it worked out, you can go back and reevaluate and reassess, like we talked about a little bit already. So I'm going to invite you to celebrate yourself, and it doesn't have to be big. One way I celebrate myself is that I buy myself fresh flowers. There was a poem I think I read on the very first episode, and instead of waiting to buy, instead of having, I don't remember the words, sorry, but don't wait for someone else to bring you flowers, buy them for yourself. So I buy them to celebrate myself just because I am. You can celebrate yourself and go on a nice dinner, go on a vacation, get a massage, whatever works for you. You don't even have to buy something. You could go out dancing with friends in a form of celebration. Whatever works for you, I just encourage you to celebrate your wins, celebrate your successes, celebrate your decisions to do things differently. And that will help you strengthen this desire to revision or reboot or reinvent. The final one is embody. And we talk a lot about this because I have the program like Embody Your Creatrix Energy. This is about tying it all together and trying these ways that you want to reinvent or revision, like embodying the courage or the confidence or the creativity. It's time to just become it and step into it and try it. Again, it's that taking action that we talked about, and pulling in the other pillar of the feminine energy, just embodying all of it. So maybe you don't have to up and leave your marriage. Maybe you need to embody how you want to feel and then see in relationship with your spouse or someone else in your life what it's like, and you can reinvent the relationship. It doesn't mean you need it. You can, when you set those boundaries, you can say, this is what I stand for. This is what I don't want anymore. This is what I need. This is the space I need, whatever it is for you, and open the line of communication more. But by embodying your courage and your confidence and your creativity, you become these things more. We only have a couple of minutes, but those are the 12 pillars. And I am going to invite you to rehearse them, repeat them, and refine them, because it's not always that we do these 12 pillars, boom, 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 right in a row. They are a foundation to help strengthen us so that we build up that confidence, that one obstacle that we were talking about that many women are faced with when they want to make changes. You can lean into whatever pillar you need at the time, so use them and learn to get to know yourself better. And as you do this, then you will be able to envision more of what you want, what will satisfy you, how you want your life to be, and then go back to that pillar of taking action and trying that out. So rehearse, repeat, refine, rinse it out, whatever the words are. I'm really into R words today, but I would really invite you that if you are dissatisfied in your life and you want things to be different, to lean into these pillars and really start to get to know yourself a little bit better. If you have any questions about this or want a handout on the 3 obstacles, that women face, or the 12 pillars to reinvention, please reach out to me. You can find me through the Win-Win store. You can find me on catmoulton.com. That's my website. Or join my growing community at creatrix.club. It's KREATRIX.club. We are building a collaboration of soul sisters and other people that want to do things differently, that want to have these paradigm shifts and revision their life or revision the state of the world and create a more beautiful world. So I invite you to join us if any of this speaks to you. If you're watching this live, I invite you to join me for the after party and have an informal, unrecorded conversation about this. And if you are listening to the replay, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Again, reach out to me. And if you're curious about my work, again, catmoulton.com or creatrix.club. Also, if you're looking for that support in your life to make the changes and make the shifts, I encourage you to check out the Win-Win Network. 7 days a week, there are different shows on many different topics that women are curious about and can support them, from finances to grief that we touched on, to learning how to speak better, to nutrition and yoga, meditation, all kinds of things. Enjoy. So I invite you to check out the Win-Win Women Network. It is a global movement to support you in all areas of your life. So get that support that you are craving, and we will see you next time. I so appreciate your time, energy, and presence joining me today. So from my heart to yours, may the energy of love flow through you and expand to create waves of pure, positive impact in the world. Thank you again for your time, presence, and energy.